entrance.
I have coming in also. People are like, "Are you starting?"
Sort of. I was like, "Oh, I've got this," and it was a little bit of a slow start. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I feel like there is so much to talk about around this show, My Unorthodox Life. We're not actually going to talk about the show itself tonight. We're going to actually talk about another story, My Orthodox Life. We're going to talk about a story that doesn't get told as much. And I think that, there's so many people in the Orthodox community that are feeling so frustrated with their lack of being seen and being heard. Where we hear so much about this, about representation, and you can't be what you don't see. And yet somehow this skips over the Orthodox community again and again. And that's not to say that, stories of hurt and stories of things not working out shouldn't get to be told. It's just sort of a request for broader stories to be told. And we don't have Netflix's platform at this point. We don't have those millions of eyeballs. But what you can do, what our viewers can do, is you can watch it, you can share it, you can talk about it. We can amplify other stories and other messages. And not only rely on the stories that continuously are told by traditional media. We have the power of information being democratized, and we have amazing women to feature and stories to tell. And I was just thinking about sort of one Torah thought to bring in before we sort of get into your story, Joyce, which is I don't go to shul that often, and I actually went this Shabbos. My boys are at camp, so I had no reason not to go. And I was thinking, like, Eitz Chaim Hila Machazikim Ba. That's a tree of life to those who hold on to it. And the thing is that for those of us who grasp Torah, who want to hold on, it is such a bracha. It is life affirming. For people that want to let go, who can't let go, it's poisonous. It's death. And I think that that's really, I would say, a big sort of theme of what I would like to get across, that God gave us all free will. God gave us bechira, and that in order for Torah to be a pleasant thing, you must grasp onto it with your choice. You must sort of actively decide to do it. Not only if you're a Baal Tshuva or a Gioris or a Ger, but if you were raised in it and decide to continue it, it must be a self-actualized choice that you continue to do, that you pass on. And that's our job as parents, to motivate our children to want to grasp onto it, not to force them, not to manipulate them, not to hold love over them if they don't follow our way, but to make them want to grasp onto it themselves, and to make them want to choose it. But ultimately, it's their choice to choose or not to choose. And so, speaking about choosing, so Joyce, thank you so much for joining us. I think we've shared your story before, but we would love to, let anyone who's coming tonight who's never heard about it before, tell us what your life looked like growing up, in sort of the fashion royalty of BCBG.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm always very touched when I'm asked to speak about my story, because in the business world, we often get down to business. And so platforms like these that honor people's stories are always amazing to me. And Allison, I met you, in this way. And so I thank you for allowing me to celebrate my story with more people. So what did my life look like? Unfortunately, you can Google it and get like a real life picture of what my life was. A lot of people around me call it like a Chanel to Shabbat. I still love Chanel. I'm just, it's not
Chanel and Shabbat.
Yeah, it is no longer my religion. Although I adore something that Coco Chanel says, which is fashion is meant to be unfashionable. And what she says, I think there, is that fashion is about creating a desire. And this is a desire that I myself was very, very trapped inside of. At 29 years old, I basically jumped off a boat and I was like, this is over. I was on a yacht in the south of France wearing an Hervé Leger dress that was like from the library, probably worth, I don't know how much money. I had maybe $1 million in jewelry on me when I decided to take this beautiful plunge. This was really at 29 years old, a moment for me where I really felt that the materialism had gotten me, and my light and everything that I loved about myself somehow had become my enemy. I was the leader of a millennial brand at 29 years old. I had hundreds of employees, actually probably closer to the thousands, and running a few $100 million business at the time. And I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up, and I felt that this light that I was born with, this like innate magic, that's the Joyciness, the most wonderful parts that I honored about myself were also the places where I was the most manipulated, taken advantage of, really abused, and really in the entrepreneurial sense, I really wasn't standing on 2 feet. I was much more about the facade. And so because I couldn't situate my inner self and my outer self, it was a lot more fabulous on the outside. There was always this drive to just kind of get myself out of it, just stop being trapped in all the materialism, which is oftentimes the story that you hear about people who leave, Judaism, spirituality, and I've met so many people from so many walks of life who have left the ways of their family and clung on to a 12-step program, or they have left the ways of their family to follow different things, yoga, been taken to all different places. For me, I went with every celebrity trend. A lot of my good friends had, breathing coaches, walking with snakes, acupressure, acupuncture. I really, really tried everything to help myself, and nothing was really sustainable. And it was very close to what I was creating on my outside. It was just a materialism that was, it was never enough. And really it was a place of just all about me. And so when I decided to shift my life around, and really kind of come into my roots, and this is really what I call it, because it wasn't this calling all of a sudden that I should be this Orthodox woman, but a return home. I dug in with what kind of made me felt the best. And my father was a huge fashion mogul, you want to call him, entrepreneur. But one of the things he taught me in business and out of business, in business, for example, he changed the date of his runway shows because it was coinciding with Rosh Hashanah. Or the small stuff, he would travel around the world and somehow always be home on Shabbos to make Kiddush. He was this larger than life Sephardi, and that's where I felt the most me. And so I started to kind of internalize that and learn. And that's really, for me, education is power. And a lot of times we have all the resources, but people are too fearful and maybe not brave enough to just look at Judaism. It's easier to maybe pick up a book about something else. But for me, this was my path. And I quickly started to learn and understand. And then, like every good fashionista, I would try it on. I was like, well, what do I look like as a modest girl? And I literally did modest look number 1. Like, this is my top, this is my pencil skirt, these are my ballerina flats. And I would create looks for myself and see if I could kind of do from the outside in. And it's actually one of the things that my dad stood on the most when he was creating BCBG. He would say, Joyce, at the end of the day, I just want to make women feel confident. And sometimes we have to take this outward and inward approach. And then when they meet in the middle, that's home. And so that's what I was doing. And I would try it on, and I felt better. And I no longer felt, even in a business meeting or running a huge company or traveling around the world, I didn't feel unsafe anymore. I didn't feel vulnerable. I felt like people were looking at my eyes and not my not
other parts.
Else. And all of a sudden, my Manolo collection and my Louboutin collection was a little less important. And it started to be about how I treated others and spending time helping others and not showing off, which never really was my style, but not really showing to others things that they couldn't have, but elevating others. And it was much more a journey, collective journey, about how I can elevate the world to feel as good as me, as good as I had felt in this transition, more so than the fashion. And Yeah, and so now I call myself well-fashioned. You know, now I'm like really from the inside, just a very happy person.
I have seen your Manola and Louboutin collection. I did get to see it myself. It is real. It is out of a TV show or movie. And yet you are a person who does build other people up, and your soulfulness comes out to every person you meet. So that's really incredible. Any thoughts? You said, as you started searching, you just tried everything else on, and then you came to Judaism. Did you have a preconceived notion of sort of what the religion was like, because that wasn't a thing you tried on first, meaning you went for the Hollywood trends first as opposed to going to your roots? So was there sort of a hang up or an idea of what religious meant that seemed unappealing to you?
There wasn't a hang up. I think that coming from a really material place, I just didn't have a mentor in the space. I didn't have somebody that I could actively look at and say, wow. I remember reading this article in Forbes about a woman who wore a dashiki to a board meeting, and she was like a woman who turned like it was an automotive company around. And I remember reading that article and being like, wow, this woman doesn't usually wear a dashiki. What's the art behind her wearing a dashiki to the meeting? And then I would start to really think about what she had done in the business. And I think what she was trying to say is what I say sometimes when I speak, like, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And if you stand for nothing, people can't stand you. And I think that that's, at the end of the day, true leaders. Like, they have a moral compass, they have virtues, they have, it's past themselves, it's a greater mission. And so I think, like, while I didn't have this mentor at the time, and there wasn't this social media frenzy where kind of you could see all different types of people, it was maybe kind of a one-stop shop and there was just one thing to look at. So I had to kind of pick and choose what felt right to me and what I was able to excel at certain points. But, in the reality, for me, truth is truth, and I'm a speaker, whether it's a business math, whether I'm talking about a margin structure and operation costs, or whether I'm talking about like what I'm wearing or why it's important to me to be modest. And so ultimately, this was truth. And so for me, at that point, for anybody who knows me, when I want something, I go all the way. It's just the way I operate, and it's the way I think. And I think being raised by somebody who was like that, like, I'd go to sleep, wake up in the morning, have a dream, and I'd tell my dad, and he'd be like, let's make a movie, let's call it. So I think when you grow up like that, and then you realize that you've hit something that really heals you, it's not a Band-Aid, you don't feel better for a day or a week, you don't ingest it and magically feel better. It was kind of something more sustainable. And for me, that's a sellable model. So for me, yeah, and so so that was it. It just really, Allison, just felt like truth, and more I did it, the more I felt great, and the more I could shine myself to others in a more laser-like way. And I was just sharing this with a girl that I onboarded last week at a lunch. Like, the only way I can explain it in like an artistic way is that I felt like and I felt like this is really true to every woman. It's like, we all have natural gifts and we all have this immense light. What happens if this light is shining everywhere? It's almost blinding. Like, you almost can't even see what's there. But then when you focus the light, you can become a laser. And that's kind of how I felt about everything, even my headspace, like everywhere. I was everywhere. I wanted to do everything and meet everyone and coexist with everyone. And, I, like a little bit too far out. And so in order to bring myself to my highest truth, I kind of had to come in and focus it a little bit. And now when I talk to people, they're looking in my eyes. Now when I have something to say, people are listening. And I dress up now because I like it, and it's fun, and it's expression, and it's artistic, but not because it defines me.
It's fascinating you saying sort of being all over the place as opposed to being laser focused. Faranak Margulies writes in her book Off the Derech that on one hand, we could think that sort of being bound to rules or a system might limit us, but she says sort of a violin string that's out flailing around is useless. When you tack it down to the violin, it can make beautiful music. And so in a sense, when you're sort of going all over the place without any structure or framework, it may seem sort of meaningless, but when you can sort of be a part of something, that's when you can make your best music. And I think, again, sort of getting back to that theme at the beginning of Judaism as a point of being forced or Judaism as a choice. I mean, it makes all the difference of, does it elevate my life? Is my relationship to Judaism healthy, or is it something that I'm forced into, and that's, sort of tearing me apart? So let's dig into a little more about sort of modesty versus the messages about women that you got in your, pre-observant days. What, for me at least, I guess I can talk a little bit about me. I was raised by a mother who would tell us, oh, in the 60s, we wore these like little short mini skirts, and, kind of before, the kids ruined my body. And it was sort of this idea that to be a woman that mattered, or to be a woman that was regarded in a high way, you were supposed to show off your body. I remember like in 6th grade, I was screaming outside, if you've got it, flaunt it. I didn't have much to flaunt at that point, but sort of, I had this idea that if I'm young and thin and attractive, I almost have this responsibility to show my body off to the world. And what ended up happening was, that I wasn't even aware of, was that I would put my body out there because I thought it's what I was supposed to do. Then I would get ogled by men, and it would make me feel uncomfortable. But I had nothing to do with that feeling, because of course I have to show up my body because I'm young and thin. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so I pushed down those feelings of discomfort, and only became aware of them recently, to be honest. And so I sort of stayed in that framework. I only broke out of it when I forced myself to dress modestly, to try to conform to this sort of Orthodox ideal of what I was supposed to do as a Jewish woman. Other things came more naturally, but for the point about tznius, it did not come naturally. But I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to take it on holistically. I want to try to be consistent. So I will try this on, even though I don't get it. And the first time I wore a long skirt at the mall, and a guy walked past me and gave me the up down, but there was nothing to see, I felt so empowered. For the first time, I was like, yes, like I get to control who sees me and who doesn't. And it was this power that I reclaimed that I had not realized that I had been missing all along. So I guess my question to you is, you grew up in California where, people wear, I think, show more skin than fabric. And you grew up in the fashion world. So what sort of messaging did you get about showing off your body? Was there sort of a thing that, like, of course, that's what young, blonde, pretty girls do, versus sort of, the transition over to modesty? Can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have to remember too, there's two parts of it. One, I'm operating in a business that I'll go back to the business part after, and I'll maybe sit on the personal side for a minute. For sure, listen, in my 20s, yeah, I was like 90 pounds and sitting at Portofino getting tans all day, and worried about my eyebrows and my permanent, mascara and all of the main things. And, and running from this doctor to that doctor because I had a vein, or like, so on a very personal side, I don't know if you ever really feel like you're enough. I think when you sit in your mom's shoes and you look back and you're like, wow, I look good at 25. But when you're that 25-year-old, you actually don't have that confidence and you don't feel that good. And really, the biggest line I think that we repeat to ourselves subconsciously is, I'm not good enough. And that's why every girl I had working with me over the course of, a couple years, the lips were getting bigger and it was just not enough. The hair gets blonder, like the waist gets thinner, all these things. But and then on the business side, like if you just look at it like in the business, like pyramid, if you want, look at brands like Chanel, Alaya, Marni. You could list a million. The aesthetic is actually quite elegant and quite timeless, because when you design a piece that's expensive, it has to last. You can't design a Chanel jacket that goes out of style in a month, but that's why people give it value, because it's going to live in your closet for 15, 20 years. I have Birkin bags that I bought when I was like 20 years old. I'm still wearing them today. Best investment I ever made, but I'm paying for the value and the quality. and the way it conceals things, etc. As you go down the pyramid, if you look at maybe some opening price point brands, Guess, this, that, the messaging looks different, the ads look different, the quality of clothes and what you get, and just the amount of fabric made, because you've got to make opening price point clothing at $20. At the end of the day, fabric has a cost associated with it. When you make a $19, $20 item, you can use a half a yard of fabric. You can use, so you just understand from just a business standpoint, the cheaper the clothes, the less there is, and the more you have to play to the sexuality, because you're not showing a lot. And when you're photographing, on my side as a creative director, as an owner of brands, when you're photographing a swimsuit or a shorts and a plaid shirt, what can you do with it that looks so fabulous? But it's got to make, we're making 100,000 pieces for Walmart. We tie the shirt, we bend her over, whatever we got to do to make it look a certain way. But when you speak to some of those brands, and this is where you really see that it's actually an architecture, and we want girls to want to wear shorts because it's cheaper to manufacture them. We want girls to want less of a clothing and less fabric and less lining, and because it's what we need to do to make it at a certain price. But to go back to another thing about rules, what we were talking about right before, I'm a mother of 7 children, and on some days I want to flow. I don't want to do rules, like I want to make a late breakfast, and as soon as I start bending and I say, you know what, I'm going to do a little yoga, I'm going to come back, I'm going to do dinner breakfast at 11, the kids are all over the place. I can't control anybody. I can't have anybody even thrive in their confidence. Nobody knows where to go. Like when I'm late bedtime, everyone's spiraling out of control. Everyone's in unison singing. They're crying, because we all, by nature, need boundaries and need places where truth is here, and untruths are here. Good behavior is here, and not so good behavior is here. And so it's extremely important to have that. And even as an adult woman, I could never achieve all the things that I do if I didn't have, I call it my Seder, if I didn't start with my davening and do my workout and go through my day with precision, because it's unorganized, and there is no beginning, there is no end. Everything, flirts with the next thing. And before you know it, I've been completely, I've lacked efficiency. And then to go back to the last point, I'm bouncing around a lot, but I want to answer all of your questions. One of the things I really learned from my father having an open Shabbos table, and I mean, my dad wouldn't host 10 people for dinner. My dad was hosting 100, 150, 200. It was a Shabbat dinner wedding. Allison, you've been to my father's home. It was made around dining rooms because Shabbos was the bookends in my dad's life. It was where everything started and stopped. And growing up in a house like that, where you have every major celebrity, Katy Perry on a piano, whoever celebrity, they've been at my house for Shabbat dinner. One of the things I really learned was that the higher the celebrity, the more concealed they felt, and the more elegant they were. And when I met so many cool actors that came in and out, and the ones that were the reality stars, for example, they were here today, gone tomorrow. They're the ones that were struggling the most, had the most pain. And then the ones that were, the Al Pacinos of the bunch were so confident and so comfortable. And the women, they were not undressed. In fact, they were very, very confident and exuded enormous modesty. And you would never imagine, I don't know if it's appropriate to mention, but some of the biggest celebrities came to our house in New Balance shoes and a North Face, zip up, and it was just easy peasy. And the people who were the nouveau riche, like we call them, or the ones that were going to be famous for a minute, and we knew it was, it was like the clock was ticking. They were the ones who were showing off the bag and walking in this way. telling my nannies what to do with them, get me this, grab me this, sending us ice makers, because all of a sudden they own the place, and the classiest, the royalty, the people involved in really creating Hollywood, the real celebrities, the real celebrities, they weren't there on their phones, and they were actually 100% participating at the dinner. And, and it's so evident. It's so evident. And, it's a real look.
Well, it's a very stark, I mean, I guess sort of the experience that you lived through and the view that you got is not something that most people get to see, but to be able to kind of take that with sort of the framework that you have right now is really fascinating for all of us to hear about. So let's talk about, it's not like you did the fashion thing and then you left the fashion thing for the Orthodox thing, because I mean, there are some people that don't blend the two, that's their choice, or maybe for some people it's not their choice or not able to do both. But as we know, it's certainly possible to, have the career while balancing the observant life. So if you could talk a little bit about how does that work from your end to be an observant woman in this space, just in terms of how you handle Shabbos, holidays, kashrus. How does that work for you, to kind of juggle it all?
It's a choice. It just comes down to that. It's a choice. I was invited 3 years ago to, I think it was New Jersey. I was exactly 9 months pregnant. My doctor told me you shouldn't travel. And the next day I was actually opening 160 stores across the country. And they asked me to be the keynote speaker at the JWE, which is a women's empowerment, an Orthodox women's empowerment group. And I remember being there with all of these extraordinary women, really extraordinary women. And some of them were, I mean, like one of them who stands out in my mind was one of the largest intimate manufacturers for Walmart. She does all the lingerie for Walmart, but you see this woman's class, it's like it enters the door before she does. She's just, every ounce of her is poised and elegant, and you would never imagine that she runs such a business, but it's business. So it's a choice. I think one of the things in Orthodox life is that we value life and we value children. When I jumped off a boat, I had no children. I had one, I shouldn't say that. I actually had one older child. I would say I meant younger children, like babies. But when I had, now that I have 7 children, it's a different life. And I choose to be in the business because I love it. It's what I know. It would be a shame to society that I have all these God-given gifts and I was, raised in a certain family and then I wouldn't contribute those gifts. Today, I actively am restarting an apparel brand. I'm the president of Swiss 1876, which is a CBD skincare product line. I'm just releasing my first book. I'm working on a yoga project, giving back yoga for teenage girls. There's not one thing I don't do, and I run this house and I cook Shabbos dinner for 20, 30 people, and I have 7 children. And I still find time to work out every day and have date night with my husband. But look, this is a choice. I like my cup running over. But again, I think once women, have gone out there and they've gotten the career part and they want to enjoy their children or what the beauty of Judaism has given them in terms of like focusing towards the world, helping others, hosting, my husband says it really beautifully. He says, sometimes we have to sacrifice our spiritual luxuries for other people's spiritual necessities. And I love that because it's really the way I operate in my work as well, is if I don't feel like I'm giving back, helping, then it's not the right choice for me. But it happens to be that every, opportunity that I entertain in the fashion, wellness, spaces that are important for me to show up in, they all come with the opportunity to help others. And that's another thing you see. People who are new to this business, or what we call like the nouveau riche, the new to the business, it's all about them. I got here and I worked hard and I did this. It's like, okay, yeah, we all did. But there's something really special about tuning off of yourself and understanding the bigger mission. Every huge company I know about at the end of the day doesn't end up in the CEO because I worked. It always comes back towards others, and it's always a place of giving, whether it's giving work, giving opportunity, giving jobs, giving back, giving charity. So it just, business for me is just it's just basically anything to make my Kaylee bigger in which I give back to. Because at the end of the day, real businessmen will tell you, you know, there are people with great ideas who make no money and they work so hard. And then there are people with not so great ideas who don't work half as hard, who make the money in the world. And I think I've sat with maybe 20 big entrepreneurs who've looked at me in the eyes and said, like, I feel you. Like, I may not be the same faith as you, but we all know that this is God-given. I didn't do it, you know, or like, you know, whatever position they are, because at the end of the day, we know that we must make our efforts and we have to take our talents. And if we don't, we really live a life where our light is dim. And so we have to find opportunities. For me, I love to work. So I want to find opportunities where I can give back and let God give me whatever he thinks is right for me on that project, you know?
Totally. What about the practical side? How do companies or different, you know, partners that you work with deal with you when when Yontif comes up, when Shabbos comes up? How do you manage that sort of in the practical day-to-day, you know, business dealings?
So it's funny, a lot of young people that I mentor will ask me this question. They say, well, I think I have to stop keeping Shabbos now because I want to go to college and like be in fashion. You know, I have had girls with the strangest requests in my eyes, but it was of value to them. I have a girl who worked for me in denim once, and she was so talented and she loved country music. So she told me when I hired her, she's like, Southwest, some music thing that she always needs to go to. She follows around this band. She was really into country music. She writes on Tuesday nights, and she had all of her, you know, life around country music. I've had the same thing around my dog. When my dog's not feeling well, I can't come to work. And if my dog's not this, and I have to. At the end of the day, in business, people are judged on their work. And if you have the talent, and if you have the drive, and if you have the ethics and values, and you show up 10 minutes early, not 20 minutes late, and then blame this, and this excuse of why you were let go or why this happened, it's at the end of the day, especially when you have a business, you need the people with the best talent. And that's it. There is no question. When Shabbos comes around, it's a non-question. I do what I have to do, and Shabbos is my priority. And if it doesn't line up, so it's not the right opportunity for me. But I see it even when I'm hiring people, you know, I'll ask them, you know, what's important to you? And, you know, I had a girl who used to tell me like, oh, I go back to India at Christmas time, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, you know, those are your 2 weeks and those are your 3 weeks. And it's funny because with time, I would see people lose their values. You know, they loved working in fashion. And I would remind them, don't you go back to visit your parents? Oh, no, because my boyfriend, he's moving to San Francisco. I want to help him move. Okay, so that's year 1. And then year 2, what's with December? Are you going to be here? Are you not going to be here? No, I can be here because, you know, whatever, I just got a raise. But it was never about that. It was always about her work. It was never about her time off. And in fact, it's a big trick. What we say is the trick of the Yetzer Hara, to not know your value. When you don't know your value, even in business around products that you're selling or to value your own time, it's actually really, really a setback that you're putting for yourself. People appreciate values, and I can tell you, it doesn't matter your religion. I can think in my mind right now 2-3 CEOs that if you sat in front of them with talent and you said to them, these are my needs, then people respect these are what her needs are. And it either works or it doesn't work, and it has nothing to do outside of talent and your needs, you know? I think people have a hard time saying what they need, and I think that's where it gets mucky. Well, I may need to go, but I may not, but I may. I'm like, it's Shabbos. It's been real. It's Pesach. I'm not working, you know? So it really
Totally.
depends.
So we talked a little bit about the
oh, Allison, one last thing.
Yeah.
It even translates in dating. It even translates in dating. And I just want to make this, I don't know if there's any young listeners, but I see this in dating, secular dating, Orthodox dating. When you're in front of someone you like, you tend to drop your values. Like, well, if it's not that important to you, so it's not so important to me. One of the most important things when you're putting yourself out there for a job or for your potential mate in life, like, it's to say what you need. And that can shift, and that can move, and it can evolve, and it can grow. Like they say, like, a man who's been married to a woman for 40 years has been married to 40 women. Like, we grow and we change and we want more and we want different. And we said we wanted this, but we actually wanted this. But it's important, whether it's an employer in the fashion business or a first shidduch, a first date, to say, these are my needs and this is where I hold. And you know what's the most beautiful thing? To see other people rise to your needs. Because really you're just elevating yourself by saying, what I'm saying has value and it's important to me. So if it's not important to you, or if you're going to brush it off, or if you want me to lessen myself, so are you truly choosing me? So it's very important.
Let's talk Shabbos. I mean, your life sounds, I don't even know how you do it. Now I know I don't hear from you too often these days, because every time I talk to you, you have more children and more companies. How does Shabbos help you sort of balance this all? How does Shabbos, I mean, you lived a life that we were running around and busy and managing almost 1,000 employees before you had Shabbos. How has the stopping every 7 days, sort of changed the framework, changed the way that you're able to be productive for the other 6 days?
So Shabbos is my lifeline. It was the very first mitzvah I kept in terms of like making. I sat with a spiritual person, and he looked at me and he says, look, Joyce, you're doing a lot of things, but you're out here. He's like, you're so big and you do so much and you think so much, and you don't put things in the right places. You're not, it's not falling right. And he's like, if you're constantly doing and you're constantly creating, so how do you refuel the creation? You know, you got to stop to get gas once in a while. And it just resonated with me. And he told me to keep 2 in a row. And first time I lit Shabbos candles was the first time I forgot where my keys and my cell phone were, in the sense that I used to actually have a physical dependency where my keys were, where my phone was, because it was about me reaching the outside world. If God forbid something terrible would happen that never did happen, but it was all about my anxieties and fears at the time. And so lighting Shabbos candles for me and taking on Shabbos and looking at my child in the eyes with a new set of eyes for the first time for me was groundbreaking. I noticed so many things about my first son that he needed. And I was happy that it was a little late, you know, a couple years old, but I was able to really tune in and really change the mother that I was, and I think allow him to grow. Shabbos has taken different iterations. I mean, there are years where I literally just would sleep on Shabbos because I needed so much. I was always pregnant. I was always traveling. The weeks when I would work in New York from Sunday to Wednesday, I was sleeping on Shabbos. But now my life has calmed down a little bit, and I'm able to really host in a different way where I can really be present with my guests. I moved to a new town. I left California. I moved to Florida. And we are, I would say, starting a community. And so it's very important to me. My Shabbos guests are very important to me. They're someone I love to spend time with. So I'll get a nap in, I'll read. But more than anything, I feel myself on being there for others. And so Shabbos is my everything. It really is the foundation of everything that I do, and it's my breath. I I don't think I could exist.
Beautiful. I guess just sort of my last question, then I'm going to open up some questions to any of our listeners if they have any. I think you being in the world of fashion creativity, I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on sort of the Torah view of beauty, because I think, in some ways, sort of the stereotypical idea we have of Orthodox Jews is sort of black and white, no color, no room for creativity. Sort of where do you see beauty fitting into spirituality, or creativity fitting into spirituality? Is that sort of a spiritual endeavor for you to be involved in beauty and aesthetics and creating?
So it's interesting. I actually want to give a different point of view before we kind of go into just beauty, about beauty and Torah values. But you said black and white, and so it made me think of this. Growing up in the fashion business, some of the biggest fashion inspirations I've had over time, Jill Sanders, really big people in the industry would wear a uniform. And I remember meeting them as a young girl, where I would spend hours in front of the mirror, and then I would meet them, and they were wearing like a black loafer and a black pant and a black turtleneck, and I was so disappointed. I was like, did you try? Like, we're going to dinner. Like, could you pull it together? But I realized that they were real people creating larger than life companies, employing people, giving vision, and allowing other women an opportunity to express themselves artistically. And so while art was their trade, they themselves were a canvas, because they were the intermediary of so much art. And so that expression, the shoemaker has no shoes, it was like that. And I would meet so many important people, my father included. I'd be like, you're gonna wear a white t-shirt to a runway show, you're gonna wear that, that Montclair vest, like down the runway, and at the end of the day, the real artists sometimes need to stay pure to channel all of the creativity, so that's one thing. But to go back to balancing beauty and Torah, I see so much beauty in Torah, and I see so much room for creative expression. Again, it's how you approach something and your attitude towards it. I always, in fact, it actually cemented itself this year. My father passed 2 years ago, and we made a Sefer Torah for my father, which was a really interesting endeavor of getting really people who really loved him and honored him to be part of such a spiritual thing. Because a Torah, while it continues somebody's legacy, and my children can read from it, and so it's actually really living. He continues to live through us. It's interesting, but we had to design the cover for it. And I tried to look at old Sefer Torahs and get inspired. My husband also, he's an artist, so he too began to look through archives, and we wanted him to have the most beautiful one. I mean, it has to be dressed impeccably if it's my father's, even though he would have probably been like, put a white t-shirt, let's go. I was like, what are you doing? Stop wasting my time, But I wanted it to represent him. And we went with like a classic blue leather, and we put a little like Sephardi vibes on it, and it had a beautiful quote. And as we were beautifying the Sefer Torah, and then you have the opposition, which is you take off this gorgeous outfit, and inside it's black on white. For me, black on white means truth. It means relief. It means peace from all the clutter and the noise and the quiet, and it creates a quiet space, and it reveals truth. And if I could be as holy, like if I could compare myself to a Sefer Torah, but a lot of what happens on the exterior is to enhance how you feel, and and there are some days I need a uniform, and I just got to wear white from head to toe, black from head to toe. In fact, one of the biggest DJs that ever was, Claude Chal, had like decades where he would wear one color. So you'd see him, and like for a decade, he was wearing orange. And again, it's about channeling, but also creating some sort of a uniformity. When it comes to Torah, there's beauty everywhere. A Shabbos table is beautiful. The way you prepare your children before the meal is beauty. You know, like I feel like it's a wedding here every Friday night, you know, but there's so many places. Eshes Chayil, when my husband sings this beautiful, beautiful prayer talking about how holy a Jewish woman is. I mean, just translate Eshes Chayil and understand really the value of a Jewish woman. She's meant to be beautiful. She's meant to be a light to the world. But this beauty is focused, and this beauty is reserved to her husband. I remember I used to dress. Who was I impressing? Where was I going? You know, like I'm at this restaurant. What do I need? Like, you know, I need David Beckham to take a look. Like, where was I in my mind? I really was stuck in a girl who needed attention from everyone else. And now, even if my husband and I are going to go for a drive for the night and that's our date, like, I'm going to dress up. Last Shabbos, like we had a little Corona scare. We were just family, and I was dressed my best. And it's about showing up and creating beautiful moments, and not just celebrating your physicality, because the true sustainable beauty is and the real work happens inside, and it's a much bigger investment. So,
wow.
So yeah, but it's beautiful. I think there's room for beauty in the home again, but then it comes into beauty and modesty. If you have the most beautiful things, do you have to run around the world showing them? Is that
right?
Is that irresponsible? I don't know. My dad, I remember we used to get into a private jet, and we would always have this like moment where we'd like kind of like jump in the jet, like jump in the limo, and it was like this. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. My senior year is dropped off every day in a limo, and I would beg my driver, please drop me off down those streets because I'm embarrassed. It's embarrassing. And really, people who they have that sense inside of them that it's like, okay, but like, to where do you want to show, you know? And I see that in my everyday life. It's a balance between life is balance, and a happy life is balance. And when do you want to, you know, celebrate yourself? When I really want to celebrate myself, I buy myself some chocolate. You know, myself an Elia shoe or Birkin bag anymore. Like it's my happy place. You know.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to see if anyone has any questions here. We have a lot of comments coming in. So impressive and inspiring. Such interesting experiences. If you have questions, now is your time to type them in. Let's just give people, first of all, it's so amazing to just catch up with you. I know we're sort of like doing this for the whole world.
I know.
But it's really so wonderful people are just sort of saying how much they love it. Okay, feminism, fashion, dignity, royalty, feeling like a woman confidently, feeling sexy. In what ways does this combine? This is a question. What ways does this combine all of itself to express itself within Orthodox Judaism? All right, here we go. Feminism, fashion, dignity, royalty, and feeling like a woman confidently. Some may call this feeling sexy, but not overly sexy. In what ways does this all combine to express itself with Orthodox Judaism? Is there a place with feminism, fashion, dignity, feeling confident? How can we do this as Orthodox women?
So this is a big question. It's a little confusing, but I'm going to say that I think we've talked about a lot of these themes. But I'm going to pick. Did she say royalty?
Yeah, she said dignity, royalty, confidence. How do you blend all those things?
So let me just start here and take Orthodox Judaism out of it. I think one of the things that women struggle with the most is confidence, because, you know, I really hear that pain point come through from young women I speak to women who you would think have no confidence issues, and I think that's, again, focused inwardly. Like if I have a bad sense of self-confidence, I don't feel like royalty. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm worth it. And that has the same space in Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, than it does anywhere else. I've spoken to a lot of my non-Jewish friends about that, and it is the plight of the modern day woman. And I think that there are really, really hard examples out there, and there are really high bars materially that we have to meet to feel that we are worth it. Thank God for companies like Zara that make us feel cute for, for the buck, but confidence is really about a good sense of self and a healthy sense of self. And one of the tools that I want to talk about is just health. I think women are unhealthy. I think we have a lot of unhealthy tendencies. I could speak to myself personally. I love food. I love chocolate. I love sugar. I love to skip a workout. I love to say I'm pregnant forever. But then I'm like, I have a baby at home, but then it's two, But I think confidence is not only about the actual body, which is the vessel that holds it, but what's happening inside the body. And a lot of times we can use the body to get in. And so one of the things I say to women who just struggle with confidence issues in general, and it really has nothing to do with Orthodox Judaism, is to come into your body. So meditation, positive affirmations, yoga, breath work, body work. There's so much work that we can do inside, and we can really, really figure out quickly what's not going well, where are we not aligned, where are we not feeling good. And as soon as we start aligning, some of those, sometimes it's very small things. It could be, a bully from 4th grade that ruins your self-image for the rest of your life. Like it could be a mother who said, you can't leave the house wearing that. It could be so many things. It could, but really that's like a struggle for everyone. And I see, it's one of the first questions I get sometimes when I'm meeting people, like, how can you be confident if you always have to cover yourself? And I'm like, no, it's quite the opposite. I cover myself and I do the work inwardly. And so my confidence shines through every thread in this garment, giving you what you see here. It's a good, healthy sense of confidence because it comes from an actual overall health. And you see that if you fix some of the things within yourself, the tweaks. And Orthodox Judaism, we definitely have it, saying a bracha before we eat. There's a lot of mindful moments in Judaism that really take my breath away to today. When I say a blessing before I eat, or when you wake up and you don't run off your bed and you take a moment with yourself, all of those moments are intended for you to align with the actions. And so while there's such a place for it in Orthodox Judaism, and while the Torah mandates it from us and wants it from us that we should live in accordance with these rules, we tend to want to shake them off, and then we don't know why everything's kind of out of whack, right? I heard a gastroenterologist speak this week about fight or flight. A lot of people are eating on the go and moving and doing. It's the most terrible thing you can do for your body. But Judaism tells you, sit down, make a bracha, wash your hands. There's a health, there's a part of it that's just health. So I think that's a beautiful thing to kind of balance in the world of confidence.
Beautiful. Okay, next question. What advice would you give to a religious teenage girl who wants to be a designer in the fashion industry?
Wake up early in the morning. I actually speak to a lot of teenage women because I speak in schools. Thank God I have a blessing that I'm able to share more in detail with girls afterwards and stay in connection with them. I think one of the most important things for a teenage girl is to establish herself a schedule. Teenage girls, because of school, they're running, they're taking exams, they're helping their mother with other children. They kind of get lost in the shuffle. So one of the things that I say is wake up early. A lot of teenage girls, hormonally, their sleep schedule gets off track all the time. And it's one of my pet peeves. In fact, when I speak to somebody and I'll say, do me a favor, call me at 9:30, and then they call me at 11:30, and they say, sorry, I just woke up, I was tired. I say, I slept an hour and a half last night. I'm sitting here waiting for your call. Wake up,
Wow.
The world needs you. So what I would say to a teenage girl, right above your head, when you wake up, it should say, wake up, the world needs you. Have 2 alarm clocks, make your mother drop a cup of water on you in the morning, create a state, create a real schedule for yourself, incorporate healthy eating habits, and a workout if you can, or just move yourself. There's beautiful music and beautiful movement that you can do. And also mirror work. A teenage girl who wants to get into fashion, and again, I'm giving her only prescriptions for the health because fashion will show up the way you show up. If you're 20 minutes early for an interview, the person's gonna say, she's hired. She was already here. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of your resume. Oh, don't worry, I have an extra. This is the type of details that separate you from the rest. And wait till you tell your employer that you keep the Shabbat and that you need to be out by this time on Friday and you keep high holidays. But no matter what work they will give you, you will complete it by working on Sundays and around the clock to get whatever their needs are, because their needs are your priority. And besides that, I come right before and watch them smile and give you the job. I think that there are amazing fashion executives out there. I know many, and Jewish ones, non-Jewish ones alike, they hire based on talent. So go out there, work hard, learn, wear your dignity when you go to the interview, and show up. Show up. That's how you get hired for a job, showing up.
Amazing. We have a question about how do you deal when you lost that connection? How do you return to it? Any thoughts on when you're feeling more distant?
That's actually a very, very good question. I wish to know a little bit more about her. So Allison, if you don't mind emailing her my sending her my email address afterwards. Disconnection is a funny point, and the truth is that this person is probably uninspired in other avenues of her life too. And it doesn't just happen that one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to keep Shabbos anymore. Oh, this life, what did I do? It doesn't happen like that. It's actually a series of choices that may be passive, or that, there are people who struggle with depression, body image issues. There's a lot of other issues that come in usually when somebody has left, but a return is always healthy. So I would say that if they're even asking the question, then it means that their heart and their intention is to be in a mindful place, in a place where they're actively engaging and choosing the religion and choosing the mitzvahs. And it can actually be like a, remarrying your husband type of thing. I equate God with love. And I think that when you're connected to the source and you're actually doing the mitzvahs with so much love, the amount of intensity you feel, it's like a first love. And when things get stale and tired, you have to do the same thing. You have to kind of switch things up and remind yourself why you're here, and go back to reminding yourself what were the beautiful things that got you there, what were your favorite parts, and re-energize yourself. It's like everything, even mothering. Sometimes it's a Sunday and you're like, I love them, but it happens. It happens, but usually the people who ask are the people who are brave to return. So that's beautiful. And it's usually the ones who say, I don't need it, doesn't serve me, hated it, tried it, didn't work, I'm not even going to talk to you about it. These are the ones that there is a much deeper issue. And typically it's because they can't integrate it that you can tell. Because I've met, people who were born from and their life and choices have taken them in different directions. And while they can't find themselves all the way at home, they can integrate it. They can integrate it and say, you know what? Shabbos dinner Kiddush is really important to me. And that's a seed. And you don't know which child is going to merit from that seed. But those are the ones that really, the ones that can integrate it, that have the dialogue and they have the love for it. It just sometimes choices that take you away from it.
Totally. I think we'll do one last question because it's getting a little over an hour now. Can you talk about your approach to parenting, how you raise your kids to value and see the beauty in both the business aspect of your life and the spirituality?
So in the business aspect, I involve my kids. But again, I have to say parenting as a whole, like I do my best and Hashem does the rest. Like that is my mantra. I really do my best. My kids know that even when I'm struggling and it's the Sephardi in me and like there's like stuff flying because I'm like, ah! Like I'm doing my best. I think Tehillim is something that helps me a lot in parenting because sometimes I'm at a loss. I have very good friends. Actually, one that I could think of in LA that I would used to, just pick up the phone and call her and say, like, I really need help with this issue. I don't know how to deal with this. Reaching out is really important. But my parenting style is doing my best, and that's what I tell my kids. Like, my son said to me the other day, you tricked me a long time ago and you really hurt my feelings. I said, oh yeah? He said, yeah, we did a blindfolding thing after Shabbos and you were trying to make people guess what they were eating. And I totally remember the night. I remember where we were, and he hates fruits and vegetables. So he said, it better not be fruits and vegetables. And I said, don't worry. And then I stuck a blueberry in his mouth and he's like, I will never forget it. And I could never imagine that something like that could make him so, he really remembers it so vivid. And I said to him, I'm sorry, I messed up. I should have said something and I shouldn't have tricked you. And I apologize. And are you going to forgive me? Can you forgive me? How can you forgive me? Because I really felt his pain and it wasn't my intention to hurt him. But again, like, I think that when I'm not enough and I don't make the best parent, I share it with my kids and I say, I'm sorry, I was yelling tonight. I'm upset, but really my kids help me with everything. And I told them tonight, I said, everybody's got to be extra quiet tonight. Mommy's filming something. It's a Kiddush Hashem. You guys are part of the mission. Everybody's got a role. If the big brothers can help the little sisters stay quiet, and they were helping me make dinner and they were helping me serve each other. I wrote a kid's book. They helped me edit it. They read it. They were double checking all the mistakes. My son, who hates to read, read it twice. So I try and involve them. And other times I'm like, get out, mommy's working. And I honestly, I do things from my heart. And when I mess up, I say I messed up. And I really ask Hashem to give me divine assistance. I have prayed from the day they were born that they should find a good shidduch and that they should merit to love Hashem like we do and serve Hashem. But they're really part of all of it. Even on Shabbos, like, they'll explain to somebody why we wear a kippah, and they're just part of it. And we don't exclude them from that mission because they're my, biggest inheritance. They are my future and they'll continue to be the light. So we tend the garden and, how they wish to sway and where they wish the sun to come from. It's all up to them. But we really, I would say that's my approach is being partners with them in raising them because I'm doing my best.
Amazing. Well, you're doing an amazing job. Your words are so inspiring. We made the title Inspired and Inspiring, and that was the right little tagline to put on for your story.
Thank you
Joyce,
so much.
Your Orthodox Life. It's really, I wish we had the Netflix numbers, but for our viewers, share it, like it, engage with it, let people know about it. It's like the truth eventually, gets amplified, or, I guess more different versions of the story. And so thank you so much for your time tonight. And we wish you continued hatzlacha in all that you do.
Thank you, Allison. And the same for you. Really, I'm just such a big fan. The work that you do on behalf of our community really allows us to thrive. Since the day I met you, you are on a mission. You are a woman with a mission. And that is something I respect, and I know many, many people respect you for. And I just feel grateful to share in your space and share in your light. And may you continue to be a light for the world and continue to bless. It doesn't it's really not about the numbers. If we can get one person to have a little more happiness in their life from this talk, then we would have accomplished our mission. Or if we can inspire each other, because really work happens one-on-one. And if we can light one person's candle and encourage them to be a future leader, whether it's our girl who joined today, our teenage girl who wake up early and show up and create a next generation of lights for the world, then we've done our part. So thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Okay, and thanks you all for watching. Okay, bye-bye. Have a good night.